right, good morning, everybody. Dave Wilde, White Oak Community Church, with our Sunday morning message. It's good to be here. Doing this thing a little bit early this morning. I had meant to do this yesterday, but man, I got a little sidetracked and didn't want to do it too late at night because I was a little tired. Last thing you need is somebody babbling consonants at you. But anyhow, here I am. Hopefully I'm not lagging. I think it looks like I'm lagging a little bit here. Anyhow, we'll just see what happens, right? Um, anyhow, so we're doing this a little bit early. We have a game today. My niece has a game today, and we really enjoy hanging out and spending time with that side of our family, Katie's brother and his wife and niece. So, anyways, we're gonna go do that. So, just doing this a little early, and anyhow, don't really have much by way of announcements, except I did want to announce the birth this last Tuesday, September 22nd. We've been praying for Nikki Campbell in her pregnancy. She reports that on September 22nd, I'm going to try to say it all correctly here, Malia Ayana Niai Dixon was born. She put a picture up on the White Oak page there. Sent us a picture. It's just a precious little baby. So Tatiana Nicole Campbell and Brandon Dixon are reporting the birth of their beautiful little baby, and that's just good. We've been praying for them for a long time. There were some complications with the pregnancy, but I have no doubt that many of our saints went before the Lord and interceded uh, on behalf of Malia and Nikki, and we've got a healthy baby. So that is just great news, and just continue to be praying with them. We'll be continuing to be praying for that family as that baby just continues to grow. I think I've got an internet issue happening here. No, I think I'm okay. I'm just gonna keep on going. Maybe it'll clear up. Hopefully it will. If it doesn't, I don't know. We'll see what happens. All right, folks. I'm just gonna keep on going here. So hopefully this thing will stop goofing up. It's 5G. You'd think it'd be okay. Anyhow, so we are continuing on this week. This is week 3 in our study in the book of Hebrews. And so we are, the first couple weeks, we actually went through 4 verses. We did the verses 1 and 2 of chapter 1 the first week, and verses 2, or verses 3 and 4 week 2. So we're going to go week 5, or excuse me, verses 5 through 14. Excuse me if I stumble a little bit here. I'm still letting the coffee soak in. So we're going to be um, doing verses 5 through 14 this week. And there's a reason it's a pretty good sized chunk, is because in this passage, the author of Hebrews is doing something really specific, and he needed to take up a lot of scriptural real estate in order to get a point across. Um, in 1973, there was a bank robbery in Sweden, and it was kind of weird. It was a standoff that happened there, and there were a bunch of hostages that were taken in the bank. And during the course of the robbery and the standoff and the hostage situation, something really weird happened between the hostages and the hostage takers. They actually bonded and became friends. And what ended up happening when as the police were trying to bring the situation to an end, as the situation wrapped up, the bond between the hostages and the hostage takers had become so strong that the hostages actually were defending and helping the hostage takers, the bank robbers. And once it was all over, the hostages actually even refused to testify against the bank robbers in court. Um, so this is a thing that we call today. We call it Stockholm syndrome, and Stockholm syndrome has since been defined as a condition in which hostages develop a psychological alliance with their captors during captivity. Interesting, right? I have heard that story many times, and it still baffles me. But who knows what kicks in? A survival instinct. People want to survive, or you maybe you're the bad guys. You start associating with their plight. Maybe the reason they wanted the money or needed the money, and they started I don't know. They just developed this weird bond. Um, and it was just interesting to me how it was a shift in authority, right? So you're in this bank and just minding your own business. Maybe you're making a deposit or a withdrawal, maybe working there, right? And these guys come in and they have no authority over your life. The only thing you wish for them is for somebody to come take them to jail, and you would not follow them anywhere. You wouldn't give them any authority in your life. But in the end, these hostages gave these guys a certain amount of authority. And today I want to talk a little bit about authority and the things that we give authority in our lives. And it just it's just interesting to me how this this spoke to the things that we give authority even in our Christian lives. And as I read through the passage and studied through the passage, it occurred to me that the authority that the Hebrews had given in their lives to certain entities, um, the writer was trying to speak to that and correct that and make a case for the authority of Christ in their lives. So I'm going to read, and I really think today is probably going to be shorter than ever. Not for any reason other than I'm trying to take smaller bites of scripture and application so that it's a little more digestible. And so I've structured things a little bit differently than I'm used to here today. So hopefully it makes sense to me. It made sense when I wrote it. So let's just go and see what happens. So Hebrews 1, 5 through 14 is the passage. Again, if you got your Bibles, Hebrews chapter 1, 5 through 14. And I would encourage you to do this because I think today is pretty applicable over a pretty broad spectrum of our lives. It certainly is applicable to me, and my own life situation informs this quite a bit, so it certainly speaks to me. I would encourage you to take a notebook, right? To get a journal, write some things down. And I'm not saying take notes because I am the ultimate scriptural teacher and blah, 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 and you have to capture every single word that I'm saying. But today, what I'm hoping happens is that the Lord speaks into your heart and your mind, and you capture that. And that's what I want you to be able to reflect on. And so what I'm hoping happens, over the course of any of these messages is that what you will do is the Lord will speak to you, and He'll start bringing other things to mind. And maybe later on down the road, somebody else speaks a word into your heart, and maybe God brings you back to today, and you've got it captured, you've got it written down, and you can make the connections and bring things back. I have been so thankful for times when I have been places, and Katie and I have gone to conferences, and I wrote some things down, and I went back to it. I've got message notes from years ago that I still go back to, and I wish I hadn't lost because I read there was a guy who preached on Psalm 51, and I actually ended up Katie went to listen to a guy preach it, and I actually found the video of him preaching, and it was just powerful. So I hope that God makes a mark on your life and that you can go back. So anyways, let me get going here. Hebrews 1, 5 through 14 says to this, "For to which of the angels did he ever say, 'You are my son'? Today I have begotten you. And again, I will be a father to him, and he shall be a son to me." Please note that that's an Old Testament passage, and there's a string of Old Testament passages that the writer of Hebrews is gonna use to set up this point. Okay, verse 6: "And when he again brings the firstborn into the world, he says, 'And let all the angels of God worship him. Let all the angels of God worship him. Okay, that's kind of the emphasis there. And of the angels, he says, who makes his angels winds and his ministers a flame of fire. There are passages in the Apocrypha that speak of the angel's ability to transmogrify. I think that's the word, you change from one form into another, changing into wind and changing into flame. So that's actually an Old Testament passage that is spoken to in the Apocrypha. But of the Son, he says, so he says these things of angels, right? He talks about, says, he makes this point that God says to Jesus, Jesus is God's Son. He doesn't say that to angels. And he says, let all the angels of God worship him, right? So the angels worship an object of worship, right? And the angels are made, they're made winds and ministers of flame. Ministers, they're made servants, right? But of the Son, he says, your throne, O God, is forever and ever, and the righteous scepter is the scepter of his kingdom. Now, scepter is a rod. It's a symbol of authority. If you remember in the book of Esther, Esther came before the king, and she wasn't called before the king for an audience, and so that was a crime punishable by death to come before the king, to dare to come into his presence. And so if he lowers his scepter, his rod of authority, to her, she is spared. So that scepter is a rod of kingly authority. So the point here that the writer is making is that the Old Testament points out Messiah as deity, one, and two, as king, as royalty. So royal deity. So what's happening here is angels are set lower in status, if you will, and Christ is set above, which is interesting because we've already established that Jesus for a time was lower than angels. So there's an interesting thing that's happening in the minds of the populace, the people that would be reading this. Okay. Verse 9, you have loved righteousness and hated lawlessness. You have loved right. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness above your companions. So Messiah has been anointed above all others. Okay. Verse 10, you, Lord, in the beginning laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of your hands. So we're going all the way back to Genesis chapter 1, where Jesus, the Logos, the spoken word, the breath of God, has created, right? Jesus was expressed into the world by God, right? The Logos, and created. They will perish, but you remain, and they will become old like a garment, and like a mantle you will roll them up. Like a garment they will be changed, but you are the same, and your years will not come to an end. What's funny is the thing that comes to mind is that in those two passages, right, in that these are Psalms, actually. I have a list of them here. And I think I'm going to just kind of reference them here in a minute. But these are Psalms that were written. This speaks of Jesus creating the world, and then Jesus can also destroy the world. So Alpha and Omega, right? And it just makes me think about, that proverbial father telling his son, I brought you into this world, I can take you out. It's just kind of stupid, but it just makes me laugh. And to which of the angels has he said, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. So Jesus is set up as an authority, and there's a lot of stuff happening here that speaks to Jesus in the creation, and then when he returns. So he came first, so he's creator, then he was the lamb, right, the slain lamb, and he'll be coming back as the Lion of Judah, the conqueror, right, which is just awesome. And God, in verse 14, so the last verse, God says to the angels, are they not all ministering spirits, okay, sent out to render service for the sake of those who will inherit salvation? So I want you to appreciate what's happening here. God has spoken this word with a few Old Testament passages to take and tell the readers, the hearers of these words, that angels have a place in Jesus. The Messiah has a place. Why is that? Well, in the world that this book of Hebrews, this letter was written into, it is thought, and I'm not going to go too deep into this. It's thought though that angels were highly regarded. Okay, they are today as well. I think we can agree that. I mean, I certainly believe that angels exist. They're real. I believe demons are. They exist and they are real. They're fallen angels. But angels were regarded at this time in Judaism to such a point that they were actually, in many ways, they were actually worshipped, and they were set up really, really kind of on a pedestal. And so angels were set up where they were not just supernatural. Jesus is supernatural. God is supernatural. But the difference is that God's supernatural, what a supernatural nature, and Jesus' supernatural nature comes from deity. Okay, then an angel's supernatural nature comes from what God gave them. So their nature comes from and is subject to God. But they were set up sort of above Christ, who we as Christians hold a very firm conviction that Jesus is God. And so what happens when that happens, when you set the angels up that high, they get a lot of authority in your life. And you, I have known people who read an awful lot into situations in their lives and said, oh, that was an angel, or my angel did this, or my angel did that. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, because I believe there are such things as guardian angels, and I do believe that angels very well walk among us, right? Maybe unseen, sometimes seen, and we don't recognize them. But they were given authority, and they were given too much authority. And some of the human creations of our mind can be attributed to that authority, and that becomes what we follow. And so what ends up happening is we can follow the wrong authority in our lives. And Hebrews was trying to make sure that people were following proper authority in the early stages of this writing. So authority is the big buzzword for today, okay? So authority, what drives your life, okay? Think about it for a second. What drives my life? My family? Does my faith drive my life? Does money drive my life? Does popularity drive my life? I work with middle schoolers, and popularity is very, very important. Okay. I ask another question: what drives your decisions? How much you have, how much you don't have. What's going to drive my decisions? What I want for other people, what I want for my wife, what I want for myself. So the authority that I guess my premise here would be that the thing that we give the most authority in our lives is going to drive those kinds of things. Okay. And so in this older, in the Hebrews world, if you will, what Jesus is trying to tell these folks is that if angels are considered to have a ton of authority, and he's going to actually speak to this quite a bit in chapter 2, if they're considered to have a ton of authority, if angels are given authority, if Jesus is greater than angels, he should be given even more authority. So with that, what I want to do today is to cause whoever listens to this or sees this to reflect on the thing that you give the most authority in your life. And I'm going to tell you, the thing that you give the most authority in your life may very well be the thing that causes you to worry the most. I'm not saying that kids and money aren't things to worry about, but at the end of the day, are we giving those things enough authority over our lives to cause us to make poor decisions? I guess is kind of where I'm going with some of this. So the passage, this whole thing, Hebrews 1, 5 through 14, I'm going to tell you, it goes back to Psalm 2, verse 7, where he says, I will surely tell you of the decrees of the Lord. He said to me, you are my son, and today I have begotten you. Psalm 45, verses 6 through 7. Again, Psalm 45, 6 through 7. Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of uprightness is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of joy above your fellows. And Psalm 110:1, the Lord says, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. So, as we move forward here, I think we've kind of set up the historical context of this as far as authority goes. You know, you sit and think about uh, other people having authority over you. You think about anything having authority over you. I want you to think for a second about what is the kind of thing that has authority in your life. And what do I mean by authority? Authority, you think about the word author. An author writes things, right? You think about just permanent ink, right? If somebody could write something on your soul, write something into your life and it wouldn't go away, what are the things that you would allow to write something on your soul, right? Think about a tattoo. Tattoos are supposedly permanent. I know we can remove them, but what kind of tattoo would you want to get that everybody would see? So fill in this blank. Fill in this blank, right? Blank has a ton of authority in my life. Shouldn't Jesus have even more? So think about if you were to fill in the blank, blank has a ton of authority in my life. So I sat and I thought about, as I was writing that down, it made me think about kids looking at each other saying, "You're not the boss of me. You're not my boss," or whatever. So it made me think of the bosses of me, and it actually, my mind kind of it's funny the things that cause me to make decisions, right? So if I were to enumerate the bosses of me in my life, and I don't mean any of these to be negative by any stretch, but the things that cause me to react and make decisions, the first would be, my wife. I certainly, of the reactions and the decisions that I make in my life, my wife is probably one of the greatest influences. When I think about my schedule and the things that I say and the things that I do, my wife drives that an awful lot because of our interconnectedness and our interaction. Um, the principal at my school, my boss, right? So my work, he asks me to do something, tells me to do something. Think about your boss. That drives you, right? Maybe you would not have made a certain decision until your boss said, "Hey, did you think about doing this?" Or, "Hey, I need you to blank," whatever, right? Um, so if you have kids, Katie and I don't have kids of our own, but I know a lot of folks who that's a big part of their lives. Kids are a big part of our life because today I'm making this video early because our niece, right? So we live a little bit vicariously through Katie's brother, but we also take a little bit of responsibility and being involved in Madeline's life and wanting to be a positive influence in raising her. So kids have an influence on us as well. So spouse, our work, our kids, health, my health at times, my weight gets up to a certain point and it makes me react. It causes me to make different decisions. My masculinity, my masculinity drives me to make certain decisions, right? The very fact that in my past is the United States Marine Corps, those kinds of things drive me because they make me think of ways that I should act. Okay, my yes, I actually wrote down my cat, Koa. That cat will go to the door, and oh my gosh, I'm gonna tell you something, people. My cat is the cutest little cat on the planet. Okay, love my little kitty cat. I may not have been ready to go outside, but we take Koa out on a leash. Yes, he's a cat, but we take him out on a leash because Koa is not the smartest cat on the planet. He's lucky he's an attractive young man because he sees something out across the street and he'll bolt after a squirrel and run across the road and not think, right? So anyhow, we go out with on the leash though, but we enjoy doing that, and he enjoys going out. So Koa will give us those little kitty cat eyes and go to the door and start squalling because he wants to go out. So we have to adjust ourselves um, to his wants and wishes. Um, and the last thing I wrote down here, not necessarily that this is last in order, but Jesus, my faith, my spirituality impacts my decisions, and it has a lot of authority on my life. So I want you to think about all the things that you give authority over your life. Okay? I want you to imagine that you can take all these influences and you can sort of put them in a pile. My wife here, my cat here, my job, my health, all these different things, right? Put them in a pile. And I want you to think about how you would arrange them. Because what's going to happen in your life is all of those things are going to inform your decisions. All of those things are going to have authority in your life from time to time. The thing that I have come to understand in my life, though, is that when I have a half a dozen things that are causing me to make decisions, there's one that really is central to my life. And that one source of authority informs and drives all of the other ones, okay? The analogy that I came up with is this, okay? I want you to think about how you arrange all of the authorities in your life, sort of like how you arrange, or how people in general arrange your living room, okay? Now think about it for just a second. I'm sitting in Katie and mine's my living space. What do you think is the focal point of this room? Whenever you move into a house and you start putting together your living room, what's the first thing you put in? What's the first thing you put in place? Or when you put things in place, what is the first thing you have in mind? The television. You're going to go in your living room, the place where everybody's going to be entertained. If you don't put the television in place, you always identify the spot where the television's going to be, and everything else gets arranged according to how well you can see the television. So the sofa, the recliner, the entrance and access to the kitchen. You don't put the television on the side where people are going to come in and out because you don't want to be distracted, right? So the arrangement of a room depends on what the room is used for. So there's a focus, right? And everything else serves that. So this is the point that I want to make here, or let me ask the question that I want to ask. What if all the other stuff in your life doesn't want to focus on that main focus? What if my wife doesn't want to constantly focus on my health or my masculinity or me going to the gym? My cat definitely does not want anybody to focus on anything other than him, right? So in our lives, it's okay to have a bunch of things that are causing us to make decisions. It's okay to have multiple sources of authority. But even in the Christian life, we can fall out of balance because there are things that can become really bad bosses in our lives. What do I mean by that? Even in a day and age when religion is so watered down with a lot of feel-good philosophies and quite frankly what I would call new age heresies, related to, maybe it is related to angels or human wisdom. In this day and age, where there are so many supposed solid Christian authorities, there are so many of those authorities out there that are just not solid. Even Christians, myself included, look to popular authors and speakers and conferences for wisdom and inspiration. There are Christian speakers and authors that I respect and that I will follow and listen to, and I do this much less than I used to because I've in the last 5 to 10 years there have been quite a few of the guys that I have looked up to who have fallen into, and I'm not dogging them or disparaging them in any way, and I'm not even going to say any names, but that have fallen to different things, substance abuse or a marriage that they were doing some wrong things, or whatever, you know. And I found myself being a little disillusioned by some of that, and um, I think so, in some ways I had to stop following so many human authorities because I did not. I think maybe in my own way I was a little concerned that people would follow me and I would be a distraction from other people. So I think I projected on other people. I don't want to follow too many other people too closely for authority in my life because I want to be careful of other people giving me authority in their life, if that makes sense. So it's just a weird projection thing I had in my mind. But you know, even a sermon that it's given by a popular pastor really is in many ways that person's interpretation of scripture, right? And I have been in the position where I listen to a pastor and almost kind of idolize that person. Um, it's particularly when I was younger as a pastor, and I would look more for that person's video than I would look for the Christ in that person's words. And so I was improperly placing authority in a person over Christ. I was arranging a person over Jesus in my life. And I tell you, I am in a point in my life right now. I don't think it's a midlife crisis or anything like that. I think I've come to some realizations of wanting to try to balance and round myself out. I'm 46. I think I'm 46. Yeah, I turned 47 in November. And I'm trying to balance some things out and trying to round myself out just as a man, as a protector, as you know, a provider in the household. I'm trying to round myself and refine myself. And I'm finding that I've got some areas that I want to work on, and I've divided up into 4 different areas. But as I start as I look at Christian influences on my life, I find that I've got to take the advice of John and start testing spirits. Right, 1 John 1 through 3 speaks of how you know who to give authority, and how do you know what to give authority over your spirituality, right? And it says this in 1 John 1 through 3: Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God, and every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, of which you have heard that it is coming, and now it is already in the world. So I don't want to make the mistake of leading you to believe that you should not have sources of non-Christian authority in your life. I don't think that's necessarily true, because everything that you have in your life, every person or every source of input you have may not necessarily be overtly Christian, much less spiritual, right? So I've got it in my head I'm going to take up Muay Thai boxing, right? And so I'm gathering some equipment, and so this is a new thing that this is one of my roundings, right? Um, so I found this guy online called the Muay Thai guy. I don't know what this dude believes about faith. I do know that Muay Thai can be rooted in some pagan beliefs, um, but that's the kind of thing where I'm not there for that. But I'm keeping in mind the fact that this guy's going to teach a martial art, and I'm going to take the martial art and not take the spirituality from it, right? I follow a ton of gun guys out there, and I'll be honest with you, one of the gun guys that I quit following was pretty rough around the edges. He was not a believer in Jesus Christ, and it was very solid advice, but some of the language that he used, I had to quit following because it was rubbing off on me a little too much. I'm trying to fight some of that in me now. One of the main gun guy I follow is a Christian, and that is a huge influence on my life. His name is John Lovell, the Warrior Poet Society of the Warrior Poet Society Network. So I highly recommend that to you. But you know, I go to a gym and take advice from other people. So talking about sources of authority, right? So here's the thing: I don't go anywhere for advice on faith unless I go to a source that has been tested by the Holy Spirit. Talking about testing the spirits, right? I don't go to New Age weirdos for spiritual advice. I don't go to known heretics, whether they're sanctioned by the church or not, for input on my relationship with the Lord. All of these different things that I'm trying to round myself out. Let me just tell you that the four areas I'm trying to round myself out in. Number one is spiritual, right? So that's one of my big focuses. Um, and I call this my ability to make peace, right? And connect with Jesus. So my source for that is going to be always the Bible and those who um, take the Bible as their source. So physical, I'm gonna in my so I'm focusing on my um, physical life, call it that. So my spiritual life, my physical life, and this is my health. So I want to this is my ability to stay healthy and live a long life with my wife. So I'm going to go to the gym for the tools to use. Right, I'm going to run. I'm going to watch videos of people who lift, and you know, so I can learn how to do things properly. But that's for physical stuff, not for spiritual stuff. Um, the martial arena, I'll call them arenas. So the spiritual arena, the physical arena, the martial arena. I've been trying to develop a martial arena. Now the word martial, like martial law, martial arts, means warlike. Okay, so but it doesn't mean that I'm out there trying to start a war. What it is a fighting nature. And for me, what that means, it's my ability to defend others and make war on their behalf when necessary. So I'm going to go to some people, some YouTube personalities, and some trainers that are going to be able to develop that in me. But I'm going to them for that, for gun advice, for gear advice, for tactical advice, and not for spiritual advice. And my fourth arena is this intellectual, right? I have an intellectual arena that I'm trying to develop. Now, I don't read as much as I used to, but I do have found that I really like books on tape. So this is what I would call my ability to grow in my worldview, my outlook, and my knowledge. So again, there are lots of folks out there who do a lot of reading, and I'm going to read what they read, but I'm going to try to grow in their I'm going to try to grow intellectually, but I'm not trying to grow spiritually from there. So here's the thing with all of that, with those four arenas, I'm going to go to sources of input for advice on those topics, and I'm separating my faith from those things. Now, my faith will be informed by those things, right? I have to be careful, though, how I arrange input in my life. And just like the writer of Hebrews is trying to impress on the people in Rome, the church in Rome, he's trying to impress on them, be careful of the authority that you have in your life. He's not saying don't believe in angels. He's saying that angels are lower than Christ. Christ has to be your ultimate authority. Let your interaction and your belief in angels be informed by what you believe about Jesus. Um, I'm going to arrange my life, and I'm going to start with Jesus, because I don't want to take the martial and the spiritual in my life. If I had let the martial come first, if I let the warlike arena come first, what happens? Well, I'm going to revert to the Marine Corps, where it's just locate, close with, and destroy the enemy by fire and maneuver, and that's it. And it won't be tempered with kindness and love, right? If I start with Christ, if I start with Him in my life, this martial nature becomes a nature of wanting to defend people and protect and love, right? Even the physical, right? Go to the gym. I'm a naturally arrogant prideful human being. Without Jesus come, if Jesus doesn't come first, and this physical nature, if that comes first, then I'm going to be worried about what I look like and being big and fast and wanting to impress other people, and so the arrogance and pride can return. With Jesus, the physical nature is going to tie in with the martial nature. The physical nature might serve the martial nature in being healthy and fit so that I can be a better defender, right? I can be a better husband. You see what I'm saying? The things that I do in my life, I want to have them properly ordered and balanced. It's okay. It's okay to have sources in your life, friends in your life that are not believers in Jesus. You can't, I don't think we can navigate this world and be a good witness without having contact with secular sources. What I'm saying is, balance them out and start with Jesus. I'm going to start with Jesus, and I'm going to let Jesus inform and impact anything that has to do with guns and tactics, or a martial art, or my physical health. And I find this, and I'm only speaking for myself. When I find that, I'm also a very natural, let me say, before I say the next thing, I want to say this. I am also a very naturally angry human being. I mean angry. When I say angry, I can get violently angry. Can you imagine an extremely angry human being focusing on the martial and the physical with no tempering from Christ? What does that turn into? You've got somebody who's just violent and angry and now equipped to hurt people. When I find that, I focus on Christ and let Christ soften my heart and my soul. I find that all of that is taken captive. Take all your captive thought, right? And I find that I become of the mindset of a protector and a sheepdog. I'm not a wolf. So anyhow, that's just a little bit to think about today. I hope that blesses you. I hope that informs you. I hope you are finding balance in your life. I have another YouTube channel called Musings of a Warrior Cleric that I post this stuff on, and I post other thoughts, and I'm probably going to start posting more thoughts on masculinity and balance, as far as balancing out my spiritual life and my martial life. So my spiritual nature and my warlike nature, trying to balance those and reconcile those two and marry them together in a form that is good and healthy and valid and relevant in this world. But anyways, that's it for today. It's a little longer than I want it to be, 43 minutes. I guess it's a little shorter than it's been. I'm trying to keep it around 35 minutes or so. But I love you guys. Next week will be live at 9 a.m. So we're moving the time back an hour again so that Katie and I can better streamline our lives on Sunday mornings, get to the store, get prepared for the week, and it helps us balance our time out and use our time a little bit better on Sundays. So anyways, love you guys. Nikki and Brandon, so proud of you guys. Love y'all. Just praying for that baby. Please be in prayer for the Taylors. They're still in the process of moving. And that's coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think. So they just about got everything moved out of their house, but I will let you all know when they get ready to move in. Their storage unit's very close to where they're going to be living, but we might put together a little working party to help kind of shuffle stuff in and help them sort of get things set. So be on the lookout for that in 2 or 3 weeks. So love you all, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. It's a 3-day weekend for us. We got the 3-day weekend from school here. So hope y'all have a good one, and we love you, and we'll see you next Sunday morning, 9 o'clock.